Welcome to Aspen Leading Edges podcast. I'm Patty Roberts from St. Mary's University School of Law, and today's guest is Ron Weich. He has been the Dean of the University of Baltimore School of Law since 2012, after a lengthy career in government where he was Assistant Attorney General in the U.S. Department of Justice during the Obama administration. And I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today, Ron, because you have a transition coming up.
I do. Well, Patty, thank you very much for inviting me to be on the show again. I was your guest several years ago at the beginning of your adventure here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you as I'm transitioning after 12 years at University of Baltimore and before I start in my new job at Seton Hall Law School.
Well, let's start with Baltimore. 12 years is like 3 times the average tenure for deans, so bravo to you for lasting 12 years and thriving. Tell us about some of the things that you're most excited about that happened over the last 12 years at Baltimore and what trajectory you see Baltimore's law school on going forward.
Yeah, well, I see myself as having been a very unlikely dean because, as you mentioned in the introduction, I came from practice. I was most recently at the Justice Department, before that at a law firm in Washington, for a time worked in the Senate for different senators. And I started out as a local prosecutor. I was in the Manhattan DA's office long before Donald Trump was a defendant. So having done all that, I sort of found my way to legal education and have really loved the role. And I've loved my law school. I think really deans should fall in love with their law schools. I know you are in love with St. Mary's and I'm in love with the University of Baltimore, but sometimes you have to leave the one you love.
That's right.
12 years is a long time. I could stay in Baltimore. I tenured, I could stay to teach, but I really enjoyed the leadership role. And here in Baltimore, it's been a very exciting 12 years. When I came, the relationship between the law school and the university was very tempestuous. And I'm very proud, if I think of the things that have happened in my 12 years that I'm most proud of, I'm proud of the stability that we've achieved. We have a very healthy relationship with the university. The current president, Kurt Schmoke, former mayor of Baltimore, and I negotiated a responsibility-centered management budget model that has enabled us to hold on to a good share of our tuition revenue, and therefore we're able to replace faculty and staff when they leave and invest in initiatives. That wasn't always the case here. Things were more fraught in the early years. But over the years, we established that good, trusting relationship between the law school and the university that has enabled us to move forward. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, you should be. That's really huge.
Obviously, we all lived through the pandemic. If I think about challenges, that that was a big one. And none of us knew that was coming, but there it was. And all the deans and other higher education administrators, and of course, institutions throughout society had to adjust. In law school, we had to learn how to teach online, exclusively online at the heart of the pandemic, and then in a more hybrid fashion. But I'm very proud of my faculty. We made the adjustment relatively seamlessly. Obviously, we've become more sophisticated about online education, and I know you're doing very innovative things at St. Mary's, and I'll tell you a little bit about one thing we're doing in that regard. We got through the pandemic and never stopped carrying out our mission of educating would-be lawyers. So that was a big challenge. Even as money was tight in the early years and less so in recent years, we've been able to establish new programs. There are several new clinics that have started in my time in Baltimore, a veterans advocacy clinic, criminal defense clinic, pretrial justice clinic, several others, and then 2 new centers, a criminal justice reform center and a center on the law of intellectual property and technology. So new features of the school that enhance the student experience. I'm very proud of that.
There's a really broad or wide breadth to those experiences that you've added.
Yes, I'm proud of that. I mean, the school, I would say, has specialties, criminal law and family law especially, but, we have students who come in who want to practice intellectual property law or international law or bankruptcy, and we have to have opportunities for them to dive deep into those fields. But the one thing I want to say, a new thing that really is in many ways inspired by your experience at St. Mary's, we are developing what we call a hybrid part-time evening program. Now, we're not going to be as exclusively online as you are and that particular program that you have, but we think that we can provide more flexibility to our evening students. They have full-time day jobs. It's hard for them to come to campus every night during the week. So roughly, we're trying to make it so that the evening students would come to campus 2 nights a week instead of 4 nights, and each class will be more of a blend of online and in-person education, some of it synchronous online, some of it asynchronous. So like other law schools, and you're really a pioneer at this, we are taking advantage of the technology that we all learned the hard way during the But now it's with us, and we need to use it to its best advantage.
Well, that's really wonderful. We have had such tremendous interest in our entirely online part-time JD program, 900 applications for 25 spots. While we were the first to go entirely online, now there are 19 of us operating some kind of hybrid or entirely online program. So I really applaud you for doing that for exactly the reason that you talked about, that the access for our part-time students who are working or who have family obligations or maybe are too distant from the law school, that they can get access to a legal education in a way that's more convenient and just more available to those people who thought a law degree was beyond what their life circumstances were going to enable them to do. So that's outstanding.
I think you just explained exactly why we've been looking at it in different ways to different degrees, moving in that direction. So it's definitely a trend, and I think a healthy one.
Absolutely. So you have a gorgeous building. If this was included video, then behind you is a picture of your gorgeous building. Is that something that was built during your 12 years? And there are some really unique features about the building, as I recall.
Yes. The building was opened in 2013. So I was dean when we opened the building. It was already under construction as I came up in 2012. So the planning for it, it's largely funded by the state of Maryland, although generous alumni kind of topped off the state funding to make it really special. But I had the privilege of opening the building. You know, we had two events. We had a preview event and then a grand opening. The preview event had a keynote speech by then Vice President Joe Biden. The now president was in our building, in our moot courtroom. And then for the grand opening, I invited my former Justice Department colleague, but then Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan to be our keynote.
Wow.
So that was exciting.
Yeah.
Obviously. Lots of buzz at that building. And even now, as you say, it's an unusual building. It's very contemporary, very light-filled and colorful. So people walk into the building now, 11 years later for the opening, and they still say, what a great new building. So they will always feel new. We've had to adjust to different aspects of it. One flaw is that because it's so glass, there's a lot of sunlight that comes into the classrooms. And we've had to play around with the blinds a little bit to make sure that the students can see the screen that's not washed out by the sun. So things like that. But fundamentally, it's been a great home for us and really a game changer for the University of Baltimore Law School, because the prior home was not a very exciting building.
So as you are counting down a matter of days until you turn in your keys at Baltimore and get new keys for Seton Hall, where do you see the future for the University of Baltimore? What does that trajectory look like?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that we have a fabulous new dean coming in. Her name is LaVonda Reed. She's currently the dean of Georgia State Law School in Atlanta. She knows how to be a dean, and she's an extremely charming and gifted person. I've now, have had the opportunity to kind of introduce her to the community here in Baltimore, even though she hasn't started yet. She's beginning to become acclimated, and everybody is very happy to meet her and excited to hear her vision for the school. So in the short term, she gets to come in here and put her mark on the school, and I think that's good. Long term, I think the law school is in a very healthy place. As I said earlier, we've established a good, stable relationship with the university that includes good, stable funding. We have a lot of autonomy because of the RCM budget model. We largely know what our revenue is, and we can spend it, not without university consultation, but they have, I would say, loose reins on the law school. And so we have a lot of independence. We hire professors when we need to, hire staff as needed, and we've really been able to expand the offerings for our students. So the health of the University of Baltimore depends in part on the health of Baltimore as a city. And Baltimore always has been for many years challenged. Issues with crime and the school system. It's a city that has lost population in a big way. It used to be a city of 1 million people, and now it's less than 600,000.
Oh, that's a huge decrease. Yeah.
That's lots of reasons for that. Largely the loss of industry. We used to have Bethlehem Steel and other manufacturing companies, but not anymore. And the city is bouncing back from that dynamic. We have good, stable political leadership now, which we haven't always had. very impressive governor and mayor in our community. And I think Baltimore is on the upswing, and therefore it's a good home for our law school. We use the city as part of our classroom, right? I mean, we're in this community in so many ways. Our clinics and centers are involved with the school system, the criminal justice system, the police department, and it's a great advantage being in a city, and even a city with its challenges. It means we can be part of the solution.
Certainly, a lot of opportunities to help with policy and reform.
Yes.
Before we talk about your new law school, I want to go back to what you've said to me privately, and you said today on the podcast, how much you enjoy being a dean. And so I'd love for you to speak to our audience about what some of those really incredible experiences are like, what you really enjoy. I know we share some of those thoughts, but then also tell us about the challenges and what someone who might be considering becoming a dean might want to think about before throwing their hat in the ring.
Yes, it's not for everybody. It's a very exciting job. One reason it's exciting is that it's so demanding. We are deans, from the moment we wake up until late at night, often breakfast meetings and dinner meetings and weekend events, a lot of travel in our respective communities. I like that. I thrive I'm happiest when I'm busiest. That's just my personality. The job is great because it's so important. We play a vital role in our society because I believe, and I know you believe, Patty, that law is so important. The rule of law is important, and we are educating the next generation of the guardians of the rule of law and the practitioners in our legal system. And that educational mission is fundamentally important to our society, especially in recent years as democratic institutions have sort of lost their invulnerability, if I can say that. There's these great challenges to norms and practices and traditions. I think that a law school is a counterweight to that, and educating students about what they can do to defend our institutions, our constitutional system. Now, that said, our students have perfectly legitimate questions about our institutions, and we tell them they're not here just to defend the status quo. They should learn how to work to improve the status quo within the basic framework of our Constitution and the rule of law. So all of that makes the role of a dean so important. We have a kind of a sacred mission, if I may be so lofty, to say, to keep these institutions strong and to make it a good, solid platform for our students as they're going through this difficult educational experience to become lawyers. It's so gratifying. I know you feel this as I do at commencement, to watch these young people, all of them young, but all of them, new lawyers, kind of walking across the stage with great pride after 3 or 4 years of hard work. To watch them as they mature in the profession. We've both been deans long enough to see people who are successful private practitioners, government officials, nonprofit executives. In my 12 years, I now have people who are really reaching the pinnacle of the profession, and I handed them their diploma 12 or 11 years ago.
It's the best part. It's absolutely the best part.
Right. And then it's a great platform because deans can speak in the community. It's almost instant credibility. We have to be careful about how we use that, and we've all learned the danger of opining too easily on issues of the day. It can backfire. But I have the opportunity, for example, to serve on the Maryland Access to Justice Commission, or by statute, I'm a member of the advisory board of the Baltimore City Inspector General. So it's a civic role that deans have. In my case, I'm one of only 2 deans in the state of Maryland. I've had great colleagues, deans of the University of Maryland Law School, but together, Maryland colleague and I, over the years, have worked together to strengthen these various institutions. And that's very gratifying as well.
Well, I've appreciated the role that you've taken in the Legal Services Corporation funding and rallying the deans for support annually on that funding.
Would have forgotten to mention that as a thing I'm proud of, but I'm proud of that. I'm on the Leadership Council of the Legal Services Corporation, the national organization that funds legal aid offices around the country. And so I actually inherited this little responsibility from Rob Vischer. Our former colleague Rob Vischer was doing this from St. Thomas Law School, and he did it for several years. He said, someone want to take it over? And I said, I'll do it. And so, yes, every year we circulate a letter, and we got many deans to sign on, and I understand that it's influential in the federal appropriations process.
You mentioned earlier that you were a non-traditional dean at the time, certainly, and probably still. There are a small minority of people who come from outside of the academy. What would you say to those who are similarly positioned as you were in government positions, who might be thinking about a position as a law school dean?
I'd say do it. I'd say it's great. Give it a try. I mean, maybe it's not for everybody. I can think, we had a colleague, short-term colleague, Scott Brown, the former Massachusetts senator, ambassador. He didn't enjoy the role so much and he didn't stay in it very long. But in contrast, our colleague Anthony Kroll at New York Law School came from government, and he's been dean at New York Law School for 12 years. I can think of some former judges in our ranks who have done very well. Who am I thinking of? Rich Leonard from Campbell Law School. So, yeah, it is an exciting role. I think you pick up a lot in practice and in government roles that is transferable to higher education. The interesting thing for me is when I became a dean, I didn't know how to do it. I had to learn on the job.
None of us know how to do it.
Well, I guess especially those of us who came from outside legal education. But now, as I approach a new deanship, I feel very well equipped. Nothing is new. At Seton Hall, they have the kind of challenges that I saw in my years here in Baltimore, and I feel well equipped to help them work through those challenges.
Well, that is an expert transition to your new role as Dean of Seton Hall Law School that is in New Jersey. And tell us a little bit about Seton Hall and what attracted you to that law school.
Sure. Seton Hall is a great law school. It's very well regarded. It attracts highly credentialed students, has excellent bar passage, has excellent employment outcomes. It is similar to my current school in a couple of ways. First of all, Seton Hall is one of only 2 law schools in New Jersey. That's Seton Hall and Rutgers, just like here I've got 2 law schools in Maryland. Similarly, both my current law school and my future law school have the opportunity to place students in judicial clerkships. Both Maryland and New Jersey are very generous in allowing the state court judges to hire clerks. And so the 2 law schools in each state tend to get a lot of those clerkships. So I'm excited. It feels like a very successful law school, and I'll have an opportunity to build on that success. Like my current law school, I think there are some tensions, I guess is the way to say it, between the law school and the university. Everybody's well-meaning. There are no villains here, but we need to work through systems so that the law school has more independence, a little bit more autonomy to carry out its role. So I look forward to working with university partners there and my faculty colleagues in the law school. I need to learn some history and then do the kind of thing there that I did here in Baltimore, which is build bridges and find common ground and get to a place where the law school can function most effective. And then I'll say one other thing, Patty, if I may. It's very interesting to me to move from a public law school here at the University of Baltimore to a Catholic law school. Seton Hall is quite Catholic. It's governed by the Archdiocese of Newark. So it's not even Jesuit, it's diocesan. Help me with that. Is that how you say that?
Diocesan.
Diocesan. Thank you. There's a new president there, Monsignor Riley, Joseph Riley. He and I are both starting on July 1st. The chairman of the Board of Regents of the university is Cardinal Joseph Tobin.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a big deal. He votes for the Pope.
Yeah, wow.
So I am Jewish, which was not in the least bit an obstacle to my getting this job. I think they were interested to see how it would be to bring my understanding of Judaism to Catholic institution. Obviously, there are great similarities and a common set of roots and traditions between the 2 faiths. I've had the opportunity to speak to Jewish law deans at other Catholic universities, other Catholic law schools, and that's been very helpful to understand how to fit in appropriately. I'm not going to change my faith, but I've always been interested in comparative religion and specifically interested in Catholicism, and so it's going to be a learning experience for me, and I think a very exciting opportunity for everyone.
I love that Seton Hall was not only willing to, but very interested in having you be the dean, given the different faiths. I think my former Marianist dean colleague, Andy Strauss at Dayton, was also a Jewish dean at a Catholic.
Yes, Andy was one of the Jewish deans I consulted. Robert Shapiro at University of San Diego, which...
Oh, yeah, of course.
As well. Let's see. Matthew Diller at Fordham is Jewish. So, yeah, they were definitely not the first, although I'm the first at Seton Hall. So it would be interesting.
Well, I think it's important representation for students to see, too. I mean, we talk about here at St. Mary's, everybody should be heard. Everybody needs a seat at the table because we solve our best problem, or we come up with our best solutions when the problems are discussed by people with diverse viewpoints and different origins. So it's wonderful.
Absolutely. So that is quite a change for me from the public system to a private school. Although, interestingly, Seton Hall does receive some state funding. It's not a state school, but the state legislature funds some of the private universities in different ways. So I'll be interacting with the legislature as I do here in Maryland.
And tell us a little bit about Seton Hall School of Law. Who are your students and, what's the size? What sorts of programs are they involved with?
Well, it's a little bit larger than my current school. It's a total headcount of about 800 law students. And it seems to have a more diverse portfolio than my current school. We are here at Baltimore very reliant on our JD, and there are just a couple of an LLM tax degree and a couple of other non-JD programs. But Seton Hall has a specialty in health law, and that's not surprising because many healthcare companies and pharmaceutical companies are based in New Jersey. So the former dean, Kathleen Buzang, herself a health law scholar, established a very highly regarded health law program and a center at the law school. So I would say that's a specialty of the school. And then because New Jersey, for a time, was one of only 2 states that legalized gaming. You remember, it was Nevada and New Jersey.
Yeah.
I guess in Atlantic City. Now, of course, gambling is everywhere. But Seton Hall still has kind of an edge in gaming law. And there's a specific program for individuals, including some non-lawyers, who want to learn about gaming law. Different kinds of corporate compliance programs. So it adds up to a more diverse set of offerings than I've had here in Baltimore, and all very interesting. I see it as a school it is on the doorstep of New York City. So students may have opportunities to practice law in New York. But of course, the bread and butter would be a New Jersey legal community. And it seems like a very robust, healthy legal community. As I said, lots of judicial clerkships, lots of exciting law firms, nonprofit organizations, and Seton Hall is right in the middle of all of it. Prominent alumni in the judiciary and elsewhere keep the school very strong. One thing that I see is that a private law school, you must know this at St. Mary's, I think the alumni loyalty is especially strong in a private school.
Yes.
Here at a public school, people say, well, I pay taxes. I'm not sure I have to support a law school after paying taxes. But in a private university, and maybe especially a private religious university, there's intense alumni loyalty that I hope to access in my time as dean.
Yes, one of the best things about it is how involved they are willing to be with your current students, helping them with externships and employment and mentoring, all of those things really of value with our alumni. And I'm sure you'll see with Seton Hall.
Yes. The school has strong clinics, call it a Center for Social Justice. But something that I've been able to do here in Baltimore is to even build upon what were strong clinics when I arrived and really protect the clinical structure. It's always, it's an expensive component of a law school, as you know, because it's a very small faculty to student ratio. But I hope to have opportunities to strengthen the clinical program at Seton Hall.
Well, this clinician is happy to hear that. It is expensive, but so invaluable. Really priceless, the experiences that we offer to our students in the clinics.
You say priceless, but the university budget officials don't know priceless.
Yeah, they don't know priceless. They don't understand how important it is. But okay, so before we get to our final question, if you had to say one thing you'd miss about the city of Baltimore in moving away, what would it be?
Wow, that's really hard, Patty. It's so many things. Well, there's one thing I can take with me, which is my loyalty to the Baltimore Orioles.
Okay.
I don't know if we have any baseball fans out there listening to this, but the Orioles are having a fabulous season, and they were great last year. It's an exciting young team. And these days, I started my career in New York, as I mentioned, and came down to Washington, D.C. And at that time, in the late 80s, it wasn't as easy to follow a sports team. But now you can watch every game and listen to every game on your phone. And so you really can continue to follow a team. And I'm going to keep the Orioles and the Baltimore Ravens close to my heart. So I really won't be missing them. I will miss my colleagues.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's been they've been so warm and supportive. There have been a series of farewell events that have just made me really tear up. I'm so grateful to the support and friendship that I've seen here in Baltimore. And I want to, on the one hand, I want to come back to visit, and I'll only be about 3 hours up the highway. But, and you understand this, I want to make sure I'm not in any way crowding the new dean.
Yeah.
To have her opportunity to do what she needs to do here. But I'll come down for, next year is the 100th anniversary of the University of Baltimore, and there'll be some big ceremony, and I think they're going to invite all the former deans and presidents back. So I'll add maybe a couple of other events, and I'll stay in touch with friends as best as I can.
Come to those ball games, right? Okay, before we conclude, I want to ask you what your predictions are for the future of legal education in the coming decade. You've seen a lot, certainly in the last decade plus, how we have evolved. And what do you think is going to happen for these next 10 years while you're at Seton Hall?
Yeah, well, we 10 years? Okay, if you say so.
That's what I said here. You heard it here first.
Okay. I'll keep going. I'll keep going. Boy, that would make me, there's that chart of, the longest serving deans.
That's right. You've been creeping up on our longest serving dean here. Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. Some of it we've touched on. Clearly, legal education is going to be more varied in its modality. We're going to have more online education, more asynchronous education. And we're improving. In March 2020, when the COVID pandemic hit and we all had to turn on Zoom, professors were basically teaching from their kitchen tables. Quite different now, as you well know. Classes are very carefully designed, and I think the experience of online education will continue to improve over these next 10 or more years. It'll always get better. Who knows what additional technology will be available, that we will have to continue to take advantage of technology without relying on it lazily. I don't want to. Sometimes we have, a staff meeting or a faculty meeting where people are zooming in from their office down the hallway. So come on, let's all be together. So
yeah.
I don't want to lose that altogether, but certainly we'll be using technology. I would predict that the student mental health challenges that we see in law school, but really it's a societal phenomenon. I mean, young people today, you and I both have children who are coming into the world and as young professionals. And boy, it's a different experience. So much anxiety, so much polarization in our society. And we see it in law schools in ways that some of which involve accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Those continue to grow in law schools. So I think we're going to have to grapple with that. And I'm not sure I have a prediction. I hope it's not the case that everybody is facing these mental health challenges and everybody gets an accommodation. But hopefully we'll be able to learn how to accommodate people well and make sure they're getting a great education. And then that hints at the question of the larger society and this polarization that we see. We may be heading into even more challenging times. We thought January 6th was the worst, but who knows what's coming around the corner. And you and I have talked privately about different challenges on some college university campuses. I think your institution and mine and Seton Hall have not had those kinds of really tense moments, but all law schools have to address these challenges to democracy and appropriately arm our students to participate effectively in these conversations as they become the lawyers and leaders of the future. So that's a responsibility that we have to educate them well. And I predict that we'll continue to do that and play a very important role.
I couldn't agree more. That's an essential role for us to play as law schools and law school deans in leading those efforts. Well, thank you so much for sharing some experiences that you've had at the University of Baltimore over the last 12 years. Congratulations on an extraordinarily successful dean tenure at Baltimore. And good luck as you move to Seton Hall School of Law and begin your deanship there. I'm excited to see all that you accomplish there.
Patty, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity that you've given me and our fellow deans to talk about these issues and reflect on our roles and the things that we're doing to try and keep legal education good. You're doing a great job down there, and I'm happy to be your colleague.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all your support since I have started being a dean colleague. I think the most important lesson you taught me early on was we're always on duty. And you are right about that.
Here's a question for you. Do you turn your phone off at night, like when you go to sleep?
When I go to sleep, yes. I think there's a difference between being a president and a law school dean. Yeah. I think that the kinds of traumas that might happen in the middle of the night hopefully would not hit our office.
Yeah. No, I'm like you. I am always available while I'm awake. Some people tend to text or email in the middle of the night, and it would wake me up. And once I wake up in the middle of the night, I can't get back to sleep because I'm thinking about all the things I'll need to do that day.
That's exactly right. I can't risk it once I finally get to sleep. Right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ron. And for those of you who enjoyed our conversation today, I hope you will listen to additional episodes, which you can find on your favorite podcast channels or on the Aspen Leading Edge podcast website.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.